Good evening, Danvers. Good afternoon, Danvers. Good day, Danvers. Today is December 21st, 2021, first day of winter. And I am broadcasting this show a little bit late. We had this show scheduled for December 9th. Then we rescheduled for December 16th. And as of today, this is the Christmas show that I have been promising you. So today we have no special guests. Everybody is very busy during this Christmas season. But welcome to our local news broadcast reported by Danvers News commentator, meant for Danvers residents. We sometimes have to expand our coverage because we are not a totally independent town, either in Massachusetts or the United States. However, our focus will always be on the local issues. And as I've promised you in the past, I will only talk about Danvers issues as they come up. The first quote that I have here, and this is a very important one to the news media and to the residents of Danvers. First Amendment, Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof, or abridging the freedom of speech, or of the press, or the right of the people peaceably to assemble and to petition the government for redress of grievances. We all live under this First Amendment right, and this show, this broadcast, is based on that assumption. So welcome to Danvers. David, we can put up the next slide. I would appreciate next clip. And it is, our voices will change the world. And that is so appropriate at this time of our existence in this town and in this state and in this country, because there are not enough voices that are voicing objections to what is actually going on in our community and our state. Our voices will change the world. So as promised, I wanted to bring to you a Christmas special, which is basically, I have been very busy doing other things, but Christmas in Danvers. The Danvers Square tree and the Santa Claus in Danvers. Now we can put up the Santa Claus that I have here. He is our savior for the Christmas season, but that's not what Christmas is all about. Christmas is about the birth of Christ and the celebration of His existence on this earth for our saving. Merry Christmas to all of Danvers residents. Second year, we're lacking in a real celebration because we're under these restrictions from our state governor and our town manager in this case. We're wishing all Danvers residents a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. We will spend a lot of time with our families and enjoy their company at the Christmas Eve table. And I flagged this as Vigilia, which is the Christmas Eve supper in Poland. Happy New Year 2022. Hopefully more freedoms will be recaptured. Need your help to become free again. That is my Christmas message to the town of Danvers and to all of the leaders that we have elected. And I consider our leaders to be the Board of Selectmen, or the Select Board as they call themselves now, and the school committee, because those are the only two organizations that are elected by us during the May elections, and they're supposed to represent us. Well, I'll give you a few highlights of the show at this time, and what we'll do is we'll start with the update of the Selectmen's meeting of, I believe, December 8th or 9th. December 7th, I'm sorry, 7th. It was Pearl Harbor Day. The second segment will consist of the residents' concerns regarding the tax classification and the plans for another CPA, Community Preservation Tax attempt. Segment 3 will be consisting of the resident concern regarding the Beverly Airport. That story continues with no end to it. And the fourth segment is resident concern regarding the Danvers School Department and specifically school committee meetings on December 13th. The agenda and opinions are solely by the topics of the town news host, and if there are commentators, it's their personal interpretation of the facts. So, segment 1 is, we'll start with the update of the Selectmen's meeting on December 13th. No, December 7th, I'm sorry. We, at that meeting, raised the real estate taxes through the tax classification process when we didn't need to. The calculations that they've been using have basically raised our taxes to 3.5% above last year. And that's the only thing, is above last year. The 3.5% is way over the 2.5% that were permitted by 2.5% classification. We also raised the industrial commercial real estate taxes through the tax classification process, and they went up 3.5%, but their rate went up to $20 a thousand, and the residents, I believe, were like $12 a thousand. When will this stop? There was a lot of haggling going on at the Selectmen's meeting, but they don't realize that this is a political decision. It's not a calculated number. The calculated number was determined at one time to represent a fair assessment at that date. Now the appraisals have gone sky high. The residential component has gone way up because of the price of the real estate. And the industrial has basically been stable, but they are being rescued by the COVID injection of funds that the businesses received. Now, one thing I have to give you is Dan Bennett, bless his soul, bless his heart. He had the right idea when he raised the classification, or he proposed a classification of 1.5, which means that the calculation of the split between the residential and commercial would have lowered the tax rate, or raised the tax rate by only 1.2%, I believe, or 1.3%. But the industrial and commercial would have gone up much higher. Now, his assumption was that the businesses received PPE loans and other loans to supplement their business because the government forced them to close their doors. And he had the right idea. But through the discussion that was happening basically between Gardner Trask and Bennett, they decided to go with Gardner Trask's recommendation of 1.42, I believe. So we still have room in there, but that rate is going to go up next year because it's going to switch. Did the selectmen have the best interest of the residents at heart? No. They did a political maneuver that basically covered their behinds because that tax rate should have been reduced for the residents. Selectmen announced a plan to plan another tax increase called the CPA, Community Preservation Tax. That's what I call it. The 2.5 override that was defeated by the voters in 2015-2016, this approach is called lobbying for more funds to spend on pet projects. Here we go again, another pick at our pockets. When will this stop? The question is that the town received $8.5 million from the COVID funds that have been distributed by the federal government, and now additional funds will be coming in from the state government, and none of it has been dedicated to the relief of the tax rate or the tax calculation for the residents. So the businesses got their PPE loans and their other functions that they have provided to remedy the COVID imposition of restrictions. Now the restrictions were not by the residents, the restrictions were by our government. Our government has been imposing these restrictions, the masks, the vaccines, the closing of stores, the closing of churches. When will this stop? So, in case this is another way to pick our pockets, and David, if you can put up my famous, in America, they call it lobbying, and that's what happened at the selectmen's meeting. And everywhere else in the world, they call it bribery and corruption. Now, those are strong words, but they apply. David, thank you. Now we'll move on to segment number 2, which is resident concerns regarding the actions by the Board of Selectmen on tax classification and the new attempt to impose the CPA tax increases of our taxpayers. Now, tax classification, there's really, that is a political decision. It's a vote of the Board of Selectmen of how to shift the burden of the tax collections from residential to industrial commercial. Excuse me. And as I raised the issue before, the commercial and industrial, the one thing that we do not really understand as residents and as taxpayers, the tax shift happens on the properties themselves, not on the business. So the real estate tax that is being paid by the landowners or building owners of a business is raised on the building itself, not on the business. The business keeps on making profits and earnings that they deserve because they work hard. But there's a total misunderstanding that the classification only shifts the burden of the tax revenue collections to the commercial industrial landowners or building owners, not to the business. So I remember that back in 95, 96, 97, we had Mr. Bill Lee come to the Board of Selectmen's meeting and plead his case that this was unfair. And ever since then, I mean, at that time we were at 1.1 classification. Now we're up to I think it's 1.42 or 1.47. So this classification shift will have to move to the commercial industrial because that's where the money is being made. Now, going to our CPA, which is the Community Preservation Act, there has been a lot of activity that happened in 2015 and 2016 in our town because at that time, the Board of Selectmen and their appointed committee recommended that we go for it. And we went and fought the battle in the streets of Danvers and with the community. But now, and it was defeated at that time because we are overtaxed already with the real estate taxes, and this was going to give another 1.5% surcharge on top of our calculated tax collections. On November 8th, the question was raised at the electoral ballot, and we defeated that act or that proposal. This is a so-called surcharge, a tax increase for special interests on the property values of homeowners and businesses in Danvers. This was not going to apply to just the residents, it was going to apply to everyone. The CPA tax increase was crafted by the state legislature initially as a means of the town governments to override 2.5 in the real estate taxation. The legislation was sweetened with an annual distribution from the CPA trust fund. Well, at that time, the trust fund was being collected from the fees that were imposed at the courthouse when registering the deeds, when the sales of properties happen. Today, the communities are down to 20% matching funds with pie in the sky promises of state funding infusion of $10 million. The state is already in a difficult position, and there are 11 cities and towns voting to jump on the bandwagon at that time. This was in 2016. I dug up this old letter that I prepared in regard to this CPA Act. And what they're going to do is, I was told that today's meeting, which is December 21st, the Select Board will consider a vote to establish a Select Board named CPA Committee. Now, who do you think is going to be named on this committee? Only people that want the CPA to pass. The residents are not considered in this at all. So we need to awaken the bear and let's stop this tax increase because they're running out of money. However, the one thing that I would bring up to the Board of Selectmen, in case they need to bring up some revenue for the town, is that I went through the assessment records and the tax records of the properties that are on the Danvers side of the border of the airport, Beverly Airport. There are 8 properties, and we forgive all that tax revenue because we're generous. Well, there's a valuation of the 8 different parcels, and they're talking about another one, of $49,999,300. That is equivalent to forgiving tax revenue of $1,006,445 every single year. And this is based on the new commercial industrial rate. So the Board of Selectmen has a choice. They can tax the residents more and get the revenue for their pet projects, or they can go and collect the $1 million that is being left on the table every single year. Now, at the time when this agreement was agreed to with the Beverly Airport, the revenue at that time was something like $240,000. So nobody was really concerned about that. But now we're talking about $1 million that's sitting on the table, and we don't want to collect it. So it's about time. And we'll get to the airport issues next, because that is a issue that cannot go away, or will not go away. So there's some information, and we'll be talking about that further. So if we go into segment 3, segment 3 to me is resident concerns regarding the Beverly Airport expansion and outpouring of noise complaints, Noise Control Committee accomplishments, and Commission involvement. First, what I like to do is I have invited the chairman of the Beverly Airport Commission, Scott Duley, to a show. This was scheduled for the 16th of December. Now, he declined, and I can understand why. The Board of Selectmen have asked for an update from the Beverly Airport Commission for the last 3 months. They have declined. Now, what they're claiming is that the Beverly Airport manager is out on sick leave. So who's running the airport? Where are the authority figures to how to run the airport? For the last 9 months, the Airport Commission has not held a meeting, a public meeting, because they're just waiting out the period. Because at the time in April or February or March of this year, we filed comments in regards to their master plan. Their master plan has been sitting on somebody's desk, and nobody knows what the status is or what kind of comments would they incorporate or would they not incorporate, except for the fact that they're ignoring the residents. They're ignoring the commission. Our 2 commissioners that we have assigned to this airport, which we're neglecting to collect $1 million of the tax revenue that we are forgiving every year, I am concerned. They are basically waiting out the clock, and what they're going to tell us is that, hey, take it or leave it, this is the way it is. And the reasoning behind all of that is that they are, excuse me, I'm doing too much talking. They are waiting this out, and then they're going to tell us on the last day that, hey, everything has been done and the FAA is going to grant them their funding that they have asked for. Now, that's the one thing that's not going on, or at least I don't think is, and nobody's got an answer, is what is the grant process? Where are the applications? Where is the general public input to that application? And I have been preaching this issue for the last, 18 months, basically. And the thing is, nobody's got any answers. And nobody wants to give us any answers because even the Board of Selectmen can't get a reply from the Airport Commission. Our 2 commissioners are vacant. I don't know what they're doing. Now, no communication for the last 9 months. Danvers Select Board has delayed any update by our Danvers commissioners. They have been too busy to respond to the Danvers residents. Now, assessed valuation, I already went through that. There's $1 million sitting on the table, and we need to pick that up because it appears the town of Danvers needs tax revenue. So the Board of Selectmen should be called out and let's go and collect that $1 million instead of imposing another tax on our residential and commercial industrial taxpayers. The Airport Commission and the airport manager are waiting this thing out. And one thing that I don't understand, and this is my own personal opinion, is that the Beverly mayor, who is really in charge of the airport because he appoints, or the council appoints, the commissioners, and he is the one that hires and fires the manager. So, Mayor Cahill, you are also on the hook. This is not going away, and you are not answering the questions that have been raised. Now, in regard to the master plan, the size of the planes matters. And I have had an opportunity to visit the airport, escorted through the different facilities that are located on the Danvers side and some on the Beverly side. The Danvers side is the one that operates the airport itself. So it is well run, operated with safety in mind. However, they cannot control the length of the runway because as an operator, Danvers, extension of the Danvers side of the runways is to them, it's a blessing. But right now, they're running their planes with the size that they anticipate. I have not seen that really happen. In anticipation of Amazon distribution currently planned in Salem and Peabody, it is anticipated that Boeing, and this is my assessment, Boeing 737s, Bombardier, Embraer E170, or even an Airbus A220-100 may land on the current 5,601-foot runway already existing. BVY has not totally ignored the noise complaints. Complaints and outcry has fallen on deaf ears for months. Residents finally gave up calling the tower. Need to have FAA and BVY management reduce the intensive use and to become a good neighbor for our residents. Now, the BVY Airport Commissioner Scott Dulé, has organized a neighborhood Danvers, Wenham, and even Beverly noise committee and is working to address the noise issues. And full disclosure, the committee has been working for months. However, the committee cannot impose any restrictions on the length of the runway and the operations of the airport with the larger planes. The noise committee is concerned basically with the noise levels of planes, jets, and single prop planes flying over the Danvers residential area. These planes fly directly over the high school. Where are the safety measures that we need to control the flow of traffic? Now, as you know, my area, I'm almost into Middleton and by 95, and we have our own flow of traffic noise, the large passenger jets that are coming in and out of Logan, and we now also have the medium-sized jets, the business jets, flying in and out of Beverly. So I have made available addresses and names and addresses of individuals that have some input onto this master plan, and I will just read this to you. Federal Aviation Administration, Aviation Noise Ombudsman, 800 Independence Avenue, Washington, D.C. Phone number to the Ombudsman is 781-238-7400. We have also filed a letter, which we have not received any reply, from our Congressman Seth Moulton. Now, I have been in contact with Norman Abbott, who is the regional director. Perfect, David, I appreciate that. He is the regional director at 21 Front Street in Salem, and his number is 978-831-2867. Seth Moulton's office has forwarded the letter with the comments that we have made to the FAA administrator and to the management, who is using a consultant to prepare their master plan. Now, I have identified a new name, which is for Jeffrey DiCarlo. He is from the Aeronautics Administrator. He is the Aeronautics Administrator for MassDOT. He is at Logan Office Center, 1 Harborside Avenue, or Harborside Drive in Boston, Mass. 02128. And his number is 617-412-3680. Now, this is a new contact that I have developed from the Aeronautics Administrator MassDOT office. They are a participant in the grants that the Beverly Airport gets. And he is very accessible, I understand, but I haven't seen much action from them. So we need the residents to start calling those functions and those administrators and the people in authority. And every time I speak to the Beverly Airport, all they say is FAA, don't worry about it. We can't do anything about it. Well, FAA needs to hear from us. All right, so my final comment on this thing is, when will Mayor Cahill finally get involved? He needs a call at the Beverly City Hall. So that's who we really need to get to, because the mayor is hiding in his office and not addressing this issue. So, segment 4, resident concerns regarding the Danvers School Department and specifically school committee. I will run some clips from the last December 13th school committee meeting, and I'd like to just briefly address each and every one of them. So, David, if we can run the first one.
I would like to make a brief statement. As a result of last month's school committee meeting, I have a brief statement I would like to make. I'd like to read it as this is emotional. As leader of the Danvers Public Schools, I take all claims against students and personnel very seriously. At the same time, I'm a process person and want to work through the process to make sure everyone is treated fairly and students are protected at all times. We went through a detailed process back in June of 2020 when we became aware of the unacceptable language and alleged behavior that had taken place within the hockey team the previous winter season. We took action at the time. When concerns continued through social media in the summer of 2020, we were in full support of the school committee's decision to hire an independent investigator in September of 2020. We were also in agreement with their directive that we simultaneously work proactively to develop programs to improve the culture of the Danvers Public Schools. Throughout this time, I had many difficult conversations with parents, students, and staff, and spent many hours thinking about what I and the district was doing, and if we could do things differently given the limitations we face due to privacy laws. The situation was discussed at school committee meetings for months, while at the same time we were working through the incredible challenge of trying to educate children through a global pandemic. When the recent media created a firestorm of opinions that we legally aren't allowed to comment on, it became an increasingly difficult situation, one that has taken a toll on students, staff, and me as well as the community as a whole. I understand that there is a natural curiosity for people to know every detail of situations, but in this case it simply isn't legally possible. As the superintendent, I understand attacks are going to come my way, and right or wrong, I have tried to shield my team from them while also making changes. For the protection of my own mental health, I quickly had to learn not to look at the social media comments while at the same time take a critical look at how the situation was handled. As a result, I have actively worked to be more transparent in communicating all the work that is being done to make positive changes. As is often said, talk doesn't matter unless it is backed up with action. You will see in our presentation tonight some of these action steps which have and will continue to always put students first. I would like to publicly thank the many individuals and organizations that have reached out to me by phone, text, or email to express their support and offer ways to help. The issues of racism and homophobia and anti-Semitism are not issues I or the school district can solve on our own. These are problems facing our entire nation, and while we might not be able to change the country, I believe that Danvers is a community that can come together and work together to make a difference. These are community issues that require community solutions. I welcome your ideas on how the schools can be part of the solution. Thank you.
Thank you, David. That was our superintendent, Lisa Dana. And we have heard this before. This is a statement that she wanted to make to defend her position or the school department's position of what has happened. And the one thing that all she was addressing was the hockey team issue, which I don't know what the real story is behind that. See, the residents have not heard the entire story of what's going on, what has happened, because they have eliminated access to the investigative reports. The statements are that they're doing something about it, but we don't know what they're doing. So, needs action, needs community involvement, exactly what she was saying, but the community needs to be advised of what the heck is really happening. Now, this statement, school officials have faced harsh criticism for a lack of transparency in how the situation was handled and for not revealing the seriousness of the allegations by former hockey player until they came to light in recent news investigations. That's an awful statement that they have made. And the thing is that we can summarize this whole thing into this one statement. We condemn these hate incidents and want to be clear that this type of hateful and discriminatory behavior has no place in the Danvers schools and in our community, she said. DHS will be meeting with students throughout the next few days to engage in workaround-based hateful language, dangers of social media, and the importance of reporting concerning information. These are statements that are basically covering up what has really happened. They have not communicated what the real situation is. They're biting at the edges, but they're not getting to the brunt of the problem. The brunt of the problem is that there is no discipline in our school system, and our school system is focused on social behavior instead of education of writing, arithmetic, and whatever, spelling, whatever we're supposed to be learning. The MCAS scores have been brought up in the past. They are not anywhere near of what it should be in the town of Danvers after all the money that we spend. We spent $65 million on our school and our education of our students. And now what they're doing is they're complaining that the Essex Tech is robbing students from our school system because they rather go to Essex Tech instead of Danvers High School. Now, the costs of the Essex Tech students is slightly higher, and it may be even lower, but what they're griping about is that they're stealing students from the Danvers High. But one thing that they forget is they need to have a magnet to keep those students. Give them a challenge. Give them the course credits that they need to graduate with some beneficial activities that they will be able to use after graduation. So, next clip, David, if we could please.
Good evening.
Good evening.
I promised my wife I would try and keep it brief, and I love my wife. And I love all of you, so I'm going to do the best I can. But this is a topic of grave concern, and there are a lot of rhetoric used that is very nice. But I'm going to start off by reading something from General Telford Taylor. He wrote, "The wrongs which we seek to condemn and punish have been so calculated, so malignant, and so devastating that civilization cannot tolerate their being ignored because it cannot survive their being repeated." And he was the general in charge of the Nuremberg tribunals after World War II. A lot of people don't understand that there were 3 separate tribunals. There was one for the Nazi High Command, the military. There was one for the chemical company, IG Farben, and their industrialist backers, as there was a chemical company cartel back then too. There was a 3rd tribunal for the Nazi doctors, the whitecoats who participated in eugenics and testing and selection and extermination. And one of the things that came out of the Nuremberg tribunal was the Nuremberg Code. Because in 1933, the German law, the Nuremberg Law, passed, which legalized an apartheid state. It legalized discrimination against the Jews and other people that they felt were of lesser standing. That was in 1933, called the Nuremberg Laws. So the Nuremberg Code, 1947. Number 1, it says the voluntary consent of the human subject is absolutely essential. So to get voluntary consent, you have to have a legal standing of informed consent. And anybody who practices law and deals with medicine can understand that there is a legal standard of informed consent when you're practicing medicine, right? So to have someone who understands what medical treatment they're getting, to get consent from the patient so that they understand the side effects and the benefits to whatever procedure or medication therapy that they're taking. So last time I spoke about some of the CDC and FDA known adverse events that they had known October of 2020, right? Well before the vaccine was rolled out. So they knew about that, but they didn't share it with the general population. This is what they shared. This is the available fact sheet from the FDA. You can go online and get it. Just type in FDA COVID-19 vaccine fact sheet. It'll pop right up. This one was updated December 9th, 2021, and it shows what are the risks of the vaccine. Well, it talks about difficulty breathing, swelling, fast heartbeat, bad rash. They added myocarditis, and then it goes on to a few other things. Allergic reactions, headache, muscle pain, joint pain, fever, diarrhea, vomiting.
All right,
And at the
David, I
bottom,
think we
it
can
says-
move on. Mark Smith has been a very outspoken and very deliberate on bringing up these issues over the last 2, maybe 3 meetings that I've attended. And I appreciate his time and his effort on identifying what the issues are in regard to the masks, vaccines, shutdowns, and other impositions on our students, parents, business, and our government. Our government is acting like a dictator, and I have no respect for the dictators in this state or this town. So recently the governor has removed himself from imposing restrictive actions because the past actions taken were not legal and directly impact our freedoms. The governor now wants to use local community boards to continue the state's illegal actions. And the schools in this state, in this town, are affected by the Board of Education, which is a state agency. And every time you ask the school committee or the school administration in Danvers a question of why are we imposing these restrictions on our students, like masks and vaccines and restrictions in other ways, they say, oh, that's because the Board of Education has imposed them on us. Well, what has happened to the independent Danvers education system? The school committee has abdicated their primary mission to educate our students. Education has taken a step backwards because we have become slaves to the directed actions by our appointed officials. We are being trained to become isolated and fearful of large group gatherings and public meetings. Our students have been cheated out of 1.5 years of education already, and now they're imposing the mask and the vaccine rules so that they can control our students. So, David, if you can go to the next clip, I think we have only a couple of more. Here I go. Reason, because I have seen these meetings have gone on cable, but you can't hear you. You can't see most of you. That's why I brought the camera today, because I want close-ups similar to what I did in August. And I think people don't understand. And one of the comments that was made today by Mr. Smith and the previous speaker, I don't know, there he is, communications. Communications for this school committee and this administration, and excuse the expression, they suck. The one thing that I noticed today, and I'm bringing a different viewpoint to this meeting because I looked at your agenda for this meeting. It doesn't tell you anything. Doesn't give you any information. How can the public come and speak to the school committee and or the administration without being, identified as being ignorant, because we don't know what's on the agenda. So the agenda needs to be improved. The second item that I have is, you will be speaking today, I guess, against the strategic plan for diversity, equity, and inclusion. That's been a drum that's been beat many, many times over these meetings. But there's nothing concrete about it. I don't know what it is. And look at the public attendance at your meeting. None, except for a few. Excuse me. The second item, or the third item on my list here is that I have been filing these emails to both the school committee and I think the administration in regard to the same issues that were discussed tonight. The mask issue is a problem. The vaccine issue is a problem. And the school committee seems to be wrapped up in their own little world because they want to control the students. And that's my own perception, I understand. And the Nuremberg trials are a very good example. Oh, I'm just following orders. Well, when is the independence of the Danvers School Committee become evident? My third point.
This is fourth.
No, it's the third. And you stop ringing your bell.
It's very childish.
It is. It is very childish. I mean, the people in this town deserve to be heard. Whether it's from the school committee, the Board of Selectmen, or the Finance Committee. And the one thing that I want to bring up is there's been a lot of discussion in regard to the Essex Tech. Essex Tech has been a stumbling block for the Danvers school system because we don't know how to keep the magnet on our students to keep them in our school system. Essex Tech seems to be offering a lot more opportunity for our students, and that's what they need. So that's my third point, and I'm going to leave it at that. Okay. David, I think we're going to continue with those clips next show because we're running out of time. But I wanted to pass on a little bit of information is that all these strategic plans and DPS stakeholder work for anti-bias and anti-racist education, it's for students, it's for families, it's for teachers and staff, it's for administrators, community and district. Well, the community seems to have very little information or very little to address. And that is what's driving this problem. So, to continue, what I'm going to do is I'm going to run into my favorite clip that I have used in the past of Albert Einstein. And what I like to do is discuss this just a minute or so because it is so important. So David, if you can throw on Albert Einstein, we would be very, I fear the day that technology will surpass our human interaction. And that's what's happening to us right now. The world will have a generation of idiots. We need to start communicating between our government, our community, our students, and our families that are sending these students with a mission to be educated. And the thing is that we have to stop being the babysitters of our students, of our children that go to our school. We have to focus in on exactly what the school was meant to be, is for education. Now, I have raised this issue to the Department of Education and to the Danvers School Committee, and every time what I get is, oh, we have to take care of all our children. Well, it's time to start education instead of making everybody feel good. So, now the next one, I have, David, if you can throw in my favorite one, Mark Twain. It's easier to fool people than to convince them that they have been fooled. We have to be careful because our government has fooled us and our establishments have fooled us and our local representation is fooling us, and we need to get out from under that yoke. So I know that I've used the term woke. Well, this is the term yoke. So let's get out from underneath the pressure of our government, because all of these restrictions, vaccines, and mandates are all illegal. The thing is, we have to shed that skin of our government and get out from underneath that. Now, the last thing that I want to do, and this is going to reflect on our town government, is that the next broadcast will be on January 6th, I believe, and we'll confirm that. But there I want to make sure that we bring together the chairman of the Beverly Airport Commission and some of the noise committee members, so we can discuss what has been accomplished, what has been identified, and what will we do about it. So the last clip is my infamous town hall and the front door, which it's not locked anymore, but it is closed. I went in and I had a good experience on the assessor's side because I got the information I wanted, but the door is still lacking the pure access of all residents because they force you into wearing that stupid diaper. So what I wanted to do is Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year to all residents of Danvers, and thank you for watching this show, and we will continue, but we'll have to get some new invited guests. And I hope you liked my hats for the Santa Claus, but there were no guests available. So next time. Good night, Danvers. Thank you very much.